In this video, you'll discover tips and strategies that you've never heard of before that will give you a roadmap to overcoming anxiety. There's no doubt that anxiety is a big problem for a lot of people. It changes everything. It changes the way that you feel. It changes the way that you interact with people. It changes your relationships. It plays a huge role in the decisions that you make for your life on a daily basis. But the thing is that's frustrating about anxiety is that nobody chooses to have it. Nobody chooses to wake up with it. It just happens. And so what I want to do is really give you the roadmap to help you overcome anxiety. Some of the things that I've learned throughout my life, not only working with people, but also dealing with my own anxiety. And so stick around to the end. But before we get started, I'm Dr. Zyrowski and welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, it's a pleasure to have you here. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join our notification community so it can help you excel your health and your life. Now, as I mentioned, anxiety is something that is extremely frustrating. It's just like depression in a way where, you know what, you don't choose to have it, it just happens, okay? So there's certain things that we can do in order to really make sure that we're changing the way that our body is functioning on a daily basis and starting to interrupt that pattern that causes anxiety, understanding some of the underlying issues that you may have never heard of before that plays a huge role in anxiety. Let's go ahead, break it all down. Now, let's talk about some of the symptoms of anxiety first, because I think that a lot of people feel a certain way and they don't know what that feeling is, but yet it frustrates them. They know that it changes the way that they perceive the world around them. It changes everything. And let me tell you, this is another thing too that I always say is that the brain can become a very scary place, okay? You know, somebody who's just living a normal life and then all of a sudden anxiety kicks in, it can really change the way that you're living your life. Your brain can make these changes and all of a sudden life as you know it is upside down. The symptoms are these: rapid and shallow breathing, okay? If you're someone who ever just finds yourself like doing a lot of really shallow breathing quite rapidly, this is something that can be a good sign of anxiety. Increased heart rate. Difficulty sleeping at night, okay? So this can be in a couple ways. It can be in the way of you wake up and you're having some anxiety over maybe some certain situations, some, different things that happen throughout the day, or maybe you just can't go to sleep at night because you're stressed about a few things. A lot of times it's, related to irrational fears, which we'll get to in just a moment. Restlessness, inability to focus, okay? So because your mind is racing, there's so many different things going on, you have a hard time focusing because that's what anxiety does. And it's frustrating for anybody who's just trying to go through their day and stay calm and peaceful. One of the things that will happen is that anxiety gets your mind just flying through different topics and you just can't concentrate or focus, which leads to an enormous amount of stress. I mean, if you're somebody who has this issue, you know what I'm talking about. Worry, okay, and a lot of times this is irrational, a lot of worry over things that, a lot of times it's just over things that don't even matter. It's one of those things I tell people all the time. You have to have faith. You have to have faith. How do you drive a car down the road if you don't have faith? You're going 60 miles an hour in this direction. They're coming 60 miles per hour back at you. You got to have a lot of faith to do something like that. That's the same thing in life. So we have to make sure that if we have anxiety and we have a lot of worry, we start to really focus on having faith. Next is you're agitated a lot. And one of the things that happens, you just get very frustrated on just little situations. They have things that happen and just totally throws you into a tailspin because you get frustrated so easily. Tense, all right. A lot of people who have a lot of anxiety, they walk around with their shoulders like this, and then they get a lot of neck pain and they get a lot of upper back pain, and they're just tense all the time. I take care of a lot of patients who have these types of issues. And then irrational fears, okay? Irrational fears, an example of that would be something that is very impossible to almost happen. But yet, because you have anxiety, you think that, whatever this thing is that's running through your head, maybe you think that some reason you're going to run out of money, or maybe you're going to have someone break into your home. I mean, there's a lot of irrational fears that just start happening. And of course, it kind of comes back down to faith. I mean, there's a million things that can go wrong throughout the day, but yet when we have irrational fears, that's not going to help anything, okay? We have to understand that things will go right for us. Some different triggers, okay? So these are the symptoms. This is the problem that you face. This is the things that you are going to experience if you have anxiety. Here's some of the different triggers. Not getting enough sleep. That'll do it every time for me. So if I'm have multiple days where the kids are keeping us up a lot, or maybe I'm just having a lot of stress, so I'm not sleeping very well, then anxiety is definitely likely to step in. Now, of course, stress and sleep kind of go together. Okay. You have a lot of stress. You can't sleep at night. You can't sleep at night, causes more stress. It's this negative feedback cycle. So we have to make sure that we're working on improving our sleep. I talk about it all the time, tracking your sleep. I'm a big advocate of that. I wear I wear a sleep tracker at night. I'll put a link in the description below to the one that I use, but it gives me the ability to understand, am I going into deep sleep? Am I not going into deep sleep? How many hours was I asleep? How many hours was I restless and kind of turning and flailing around in bed? So sleep is a big one. Stress is another one. Another huge trigger is going to be if you're just overwhelmed. Okay. So if, let's say, maybe you have a family and you got financials and you got, things that you're in charge of, people you're in charge of at work, and, everything's kind of just frustrating and overwhelming to you, that can lead into anxiety in a big way. I mean, let's face it, like right now we're in a position where we're experiencing coronavirus. Okay. Between coronavirus, let's say for me, for instance, coronavirus and having a big staff of people and people that we care about that we don't want to, have to let go. And then we're dealing with this huge problem with, things being shut down and people being in quarantine. It's a ton of stress. It's a ton of overwhelm. Okay. It's a good thing to cause anxiety for a lot of people. I know a lot of people watching this at home, just being at home and not going to work and not interacting with family and friends, it's causing anxiety. Okay. So these are things that once we just have to understand that this can happen. Caffeine's another big one. Okay. So caffeine can be a trigger for anxiety for pretty much anybody, especially those who suffer on a daily basis with anxiety. But one of the big things that I find with people who are suffering with anxiety from caffeine is essentially the individuals who have the genetic variation where they're very sensitive to caffeine. Okay, so when you're very sensitive to caffeine, essentially what happens, you just don't metabolize the caffeine quickly. And as a result of not burning through that caffeine very quickly, it can just kind of build up in your system. And so let's say you go and have like 1 cup of coffee, you're fine. 2 cups of coffee, 3 cups of coffee, you're an anxiety bomb. Okay. And when I say cups of coffee, let's say it's a small glass. Let's say you just have a big old monster cup of coffee and you're someone who's very sensitive to caffeine. It can just put you into an anxiety tailspin that you've never experienced. So the bad part is a lot of people don't pay attention enough to their body to realize that they drank the caffeine. Now they got an anxiety problem. So that's something that we have to really make sure we're paying attention to with that caffeine. Alcohol is a big one too. I mean, look, if you drink alcohol and it messes you up like that, you just got to stop. I mean, a lot of times people who drink alcohol, they'll wake up the next day and it's almost like, the way that they feel, it's like they've been poisoned, Alcohol can play a different role in every person's body as to how their body reacts. And a lot of it has to do with their genes. Now, there's a couple hidden triggers that we're going to wait on these right here. We'll get back to these, but these are very important. I want to jump right into the remedies. Okay. Now, some of the remedies that you can do that I have found that work very well for me, for many of the patients I've worked with is, for one, is going to be exercise. Okay. There's a lot of different types of exercise you can do when it comes to making sure that you're alleviating some of the anxiety. I find that running is a big one that helps alleviate it. Get outside, get moving, get in the fresh air. Go do some running. That helps. For some people, it's weightlifting. That does it. Others, it's yoga. Okay. But exercise in general helps. So try to make sure that you're getting exercise in on a daily basis. Meditation is a big one too for a lot of people. I find that if you can learn to calm your mind, if you can learn to just lay down and meditate for a while or do whatever, wherever you meditate, but just learn to calm your mind. It's a big deal because the people who have anxiety, their mind is racing. They don't feel well. So learn to take control of your mind. Meditation is a great way to do that. There's a lot of apps out there. There's a lot of great things you can do for that. Sleep, always constantly work to increase the quality of your sleep. I talked about that quite a bit. Make sure that you're getting to bed at night at a proper time. Don't stay up too late at night. Don't, use a whole bunch of different screens, watching TV and being on your phone and iPad, whatever else it is at night. Be careful and conscious of all that stuff. So sleep's a big one. And what I'll do is I'll put links in the descriptions to resources for all of this stuff, okay? Because that's going to be very important. Downtime is something I find to be very beneficial as well. Because a lot of times, if you're very busy, like I said, you got the family, you got all these things going on, it's good to just schedule downtime where it's like, I'm not putting anything on my calendar. I'm not scheduling anything. I'm taking this chunk of the day and it's just about me enjoying life. That can be very beneficial. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I always think about is back when I was in school. When I was in school, it was very grueling. Okay, you go to school for like 6 to 8 hours a day where you're sitting in a classroom, which is horrible for you in the first place because you're just in a chair all day. And then after that, you got to go home and study for a long time. So what I would always do is on a Friday afternoon, I just would basically take that time, and that was a time for me to take off. It was a time for me to spend time with my wife and the family and just focus on like being a human being. And then Saturday, it was over and I had to jump back into studying all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and of course classes all day the next week. But that Friday afternoon was something I looked forward to because I just dropped everything. And it was very helpful. Let's talk about some different remedies here. Food's a big one. Make sure that your diet's clean. You know, I always talk about diet being the key to making sure that you are living a healthy lifestyle, okay? So we can talk about supplements, we can talk about exercise, we can talk about all of it. Diet is the key. Diet is the most important. I'm a huge fan of you dialing in on your diet. I always look at it this way, you know, because some people say, well, Dr. Zyrowski, you recommend supplements, but what about food? I always put diet first. This is the strongest and most powerful tool that you have in your toolbox in order to overcome anxiety or any other condition. Focus on diet, and then we add in supplements in order to build on that, in order to get better results. Okay, this is kind of the idea of how we work clinically when working with people. B vitamins can be very beneficial when you're having anxiety. B1 is very beneficial, but these B vitamins play a huge role in the methylation process, which we're going to talk about more in just a minute, and how this can play into you having problems with anxiety. And so B vitamins are really good. Taking all of them is going to be highly beneficial, but B1 in particular. Magnesium, okay, magnesium is a great calmer. I'm a big fan of people taking Epsom salt baths. I'm a great advocate of people going and using magnesium to not only calm the nervous system, but also just calm the whole musculoskeletal system and making sure that you have enough of it. You know, a lot of studies are showing that many people are very deficient in magnesium. When you're deficient in magnesium, not only do you have more aches and pains and muscle twitches and all these different things going on, but the problem is too, is it can play a role in anxiety. So magnesium is important, but here's something that's really important to understand, okay, is that it's not just about any magnesium. There's actually some magnesiums that are better for the brain. There's a specific patented one called Magtine. I'll put a link in the description below so that you can read on it. But this particular type of magnesium has been shown to be able to cross into the brain and actually have a greater impact on relieving depression, anxiety, and just, you know, a lot of neurological stress. So we want to make sure that we are smart about this, okay? It's not that regular magnesium wouldn't work at all, but if we can get one that can actually get to the brain and calm things down, we're going to get way, way better results, okay? Next on our list is going to be adaptogens. Adaptogens are helpful because they're just kind of the great balancers, okay? Now, if we use adaptogens, we can use it up to like what I'll have some people do who are really stressed out, who are going through a lot of anxiety. I'll have them take like a capsule of adaptogens 3 times a day, like morning, noon, and lunch, and just so that they're constantly working to create balance through their body. This all works really well. Now, one of the things I want to mention too here is that if you want to learn more about some different brain nutrients and how to actually promote micronutrient flow to the brain, what I'll do is I'll put a link to a video right up here. It's very powerful for people who are suffering from anxiety and depression. I'll also put it in the description below so that you can find it here when we're all done. Remedies, and one of the ones that is not on there that seems to work really well for me in particular, and a couple others, is some CBD. Okay, one of the things I'll do is I'll take some CBD at night before going to bed. This seems to work very well. Okay, so if I'm having multiple stressful days in a row, one of the things I'll do is I'll high dose it at night, and I go to sleep, and it'll just kind of work as a great resetter. Okay, it resets just the way that I feel. I wake up more rejuvenated, refreshed, and it seems like that stress just dropped. Because that's the thing about anxiety and stress. Like sometimes it just builds up and it won't stop. It won't go away. And I find that this helps. Okay. Now, one of the things I will mention about this is typically a higher dose that I have to take in order for it to work for me. So it's a little bit different for everybody. And I know that some people will say like, well, CBD is expensive. Good quality CBD absolutely is kind of a pricey thing. However, if you're using it in moderation, so like I actually will use it maybe like once a week, once every other week, maybe I'll go a couple weeks without using it. But when I feel that that stress is just building up and it's almost intolerable, I'll take a huge dose of it before bed. And then from there, it'll just help me reset and it'll really help calm me down. So utilize that as well. Now let's talk about some of the hidden factors. These are the factors that can be a little bit frustrating, right? Because, you know, you've probably heard some of these different things I've talked about before by other people, you know, go and meditate and make sure you exercise and some of these things. But here's the behind the scene interactions that can be occurring in your body that are very frustrating, and that's different genetic mutations. Okay, so if you have these different genetic SNPs, what can happen is you have these genes in your body. It's like your core, your body, your genetics actually causing problems for you. All right, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is kind of where the other shoe drops, because let's say you've done all this stuff and it doesn't seem to be working as well. Well, here's the thing, is that we can have these genetic variations, like the COMT one here. This one in particular is going to be very frustrating. Okay, so the COMT gene mutation, if you've gotten your genetics tested before, that can be one that causes a lot of anxiety and depression. We have to be aware of that. And so like you're just more prone to it. Now these genes don't necessarily always act up, but they can act up. You become sick, you become inflamed, you become stressed. These genes can start acting up, and all of a sudden you go into this anxiety spiral that's hard to get out of. Well, the COMT genetic variation can be one of the reasons, and then the MTHFR is another major reason that people can fall into a state of anxiety. This genetic variation as well can cause some serious problems for people. So what you want to do, if you really want to understand your body, is you want to understand the nutrigenome, okay? So when we do nutrigenomics clinically, we look at things like this and we help people identify these problems. If this is something that you're interested in, what I'll do is I'll put some sort of link in the description where you can find more information out about this. But it's so enlightening, because you may be that person that always has a problem in certain areas. I know I was. When I found out some of the things that was behind my genomics, it just kind of blew me away, because it's like, these are things I've struggled with my whole life. And I just thought it was, me, and I didn't think there was anything I could change about it. Turns out that I have some different genes acting up, and they're causing a problem for me. But the good news is what you can actually do is you can go and start reversing some of these problems by putting on the proper nutrients that are going to help make those genes act appropriately, okay? There's different lifestyle changes you can make, but first of all, you have to determine if you have them. And there's tons of different genetic variations you can have. These aren't the only ones, but these are two of the big ones that act on a lot of people, causing a lot of problems with anxiety, depression, frustration, irritability, all these issues we talked about here. So yeah, we can do these things right here, but understand, if this is behind the scenes messing you up, then there's no doubt that you're going to have some serious issues that just don't seem to go away, right? Because you might say, oh man, like, you know what? I'm not stressed out. I'm not having some of these different triggers happen to me. Why is it that I'm constantly facing anxiety? It's hard-coded in your body. And so what you do is you just, like I said, you change your lifestyle according to these genes. You change some of your nutrition according to these genes. You eat a certain way. You take certain nutrients, and you promote these genes to function properly in your body. And then from there, it is something that is just going to be transformational. And it was for me, and I know it will be for you as well. So you can look at all these different resources. Give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends, because I know there's a lot of people out there suffering with anxiety. They don't know the proper thing to do. They don't know why it's happening. Like I said, with anxiety, depression, these things, the brain can become a scary place. People don't choose to have this. But if you want to learn more, look in the description for all the different resources, and then check out this video right here in order to help further support your brain health. When we look at the brain in general, when we look at how many people are suffering from brain inflammation, it's devastating. And what I have found is that when you decrease brain inflammation, you can decrease so many brain disorders.